Let me tell you something right now. This room is about to shift because when a woman connects to heaven, when she drowns out the noise of the world to tune into the frequency of her creator, everything changes. Her family changes. Her finances change. Her future explodes with purpose. Not because she's louder than others, but because she listens louder. If you've ever wondered what makes a woman unshakable, unbreakable, unstoppable, it's this. She listens to God. And if you don't think that's powerful, buckle up, because by the end of this message, you won't just believe it, you'll want to become it. When a woman listens to God, she moves beyond human logic and taps into divine intelligence. That's not poetic, it's reality. Discernment becomes her superpower. She sees what others miss. She senses what others ignore. She walks into a room, and without anyone saying a word, she knows what's really happening. Not because she's trained in psychology or read 100 books on body language, because she has tuned her ears to the frequency of heaven. That is the edge. That is the difference. The world is loud. Opinions are loud. Emotions are loud. But in the noise, there is a whisper, and that whisper can save your future. That whisper can protect your children. That whisper can show you which opportunity is a trap and which one is a divine door. A woman who listens to God doesn't panic when others do. She doesn't rush to keep up. She slows down to receive instructions. And when she speaks, it's with the authority that only comes from someone who has spent time with the source. Discernment is not suspicion. It's not paranoia. It's not guessing. It's revelation. When God speaks, it cuts through the fog. It shows you what's real. It exposes the lies. And a woman with discernment doesn't just survive. She builds, she protects, she governs. That's why the enemy fears a listening woman. Because when she hears from God, she can't be manipulated. She can't be easily distracted. She can't be seduced by every trend, every relationship, every shiny opportunity that walks by. She knows what's from him and what's not. Let me say something that may shift the atmosphere. Listening to God is not just a spiritual act, it's a strategy. The most powerful women in history didn't rise by default. They rose by direction. And that direction came through intimacy with God. Divine discernment makes you sharper. It gives you the blueprint before the battle even starts. You're not just reacting to life, you're anticipating it. You're preparing because you've already heard. That's power. And in today's world where everyone's confused, rushed, and easily swayed, that kind of clarity is rare. But you can have it if you choose to listen. So many women are exhausted because they're trying to figure everything out in their own strength. But a woman who listens doesn't carry the weight alone. She gets insight in prayer. She gets direction in worship. She's not desperate for everyone's advice because she's already heard from the one who sees the end from the beginning. And when she moves with confidence, not arrogance, because she knows it wasn't her wisdom, it was his voice. The power of a woman who listens to God is not in how much she knows, it's in how well she hears. And when she hears clearly, she moves differently. And that difference, that's the power the world can't explain, but absolutely cannot ignore. You can always tell when a woman has spent time with God because there's a weight to her presence that can't be faked. She walks into the room with a calm that disarms chaos. She speaks, and her words carry truth that cuts through confusion. Why? Because she knows who she is. Not in theory, not in a self-help, motivational, look in the mirror and say, I'm enough kind of way, but in the deepest, most unshakable place of her spirit. Her identity doesn't come from applause. It doesn't come from validation. It comes from intimacy with the one who created her. That's why she's unmovable. See, the world is in an identity crisis. It constantly tells women what they should be. Be bold, but not too bold. Be soft, but not too emotional. Be successful, but not intimidating. Be beautiful, but not vain. And with every headline, every scroll, every opinion, it chips away at confidence. But a woman who listens to God isn't confused. She doesn't live in comparison. She doesn't shrink or stretch herself to fit into someone else's expectations. She lives from a place of divine knowing. She knows she is chosen, appointed, set apart, not because of perfection, but because she is His. Obedience is not a weak word. It's not passive. It's not submissive in the way the world has twisted it. Obedience, in the hands of a woman who listens to God, is one of the most powerful forces on earth. It's not about control. It's about alignment. It's about saying yes to something higher than your own understanding, trusting that God sees the whole picture while you're just holding a puzzle piece. And when that kind of woman obeys, not because it's easy, not because it makes sense, but because she heard God, things shift. Doors open. Chains break. Generational curses are shattered. Her obedience becomes the bridge between heaven and earth. A lot of people want the blessing, but few want the instruction. Yet the blessing lives on the other side of the yes. Obedience isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. It's waking up early to pray when your body is tired. It's walking away from a relationship that looks good on paper but isn't good for your soul. It's giving when it doesn't make financial sense. It's staying when you'd rather run or going when you'd rather stay. It's those small, often unseen decisions that heaven records and hell fears. Because hell knows when a woman obeys God, she becomes unstoppable. There's a story in the Bible where Jesus turns water into wine. We love the miracle part, but before the miracle came the instruction, fill the jars with water. Imagine how that sounded. Fill jars with water at a wedding that's run out of wine. It made no sense, but someone obeyed, and because of that obedience, a miracle was released. That's what it looks like when a woman listens and acts, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it costs her comfort. Her obedience pulls miracles into motion. A woman who listens to God doesn't obey out of fear, she obeys out of trust. She's not trying to earn His love, she's responding to it. And in that response, there is power. Because when she moves in obedience, she moves with divine backing. She's not alone. Heaven is with her. Favor follows her. Provision chases her. And it's not just for her, it overflows. Her yes blesses everyone around her. Her obedience builds legacy, shifts atmospheres, breaks through limitations. People watch her and think she's lucky, but it's not luck, it's alignment. It's listening. It's obeying even when no one else understands. The truth is, obedience will often separate you. Not everyone will get it. Not everyone will cheer, but it will always elevate you because obedience to God will never return empty. It may cost you up front, but the return is exponential. A woman who obeys God becomes a living example of what it looks like to walk in divine rhythm. She's not reacting to life, she's responding to instruction. She's not stumbling forward, she's being led. And that right there is the power that multiplies everything she touches. When obedience becomes her lifestyle, overflow becomes her portion. Courage isn't always loud. It doesn't always look like standing on a stage or charging into battle. Sometimes courage is quiet. It's the decision made in a prayer closet, tears running down a woman's face as she says, God, I don't understand, but I'll go. It's that inner fire that comes from being in the presence of the one who holds the future. A woman who listens to God doesn't manufacture bravery, she receives it. Because when you've heard God's voice, fear loses its volume, doubt loses its grip. And even when everything around you says, stay small, you step forward. Not because you're fearless, but because you've been filled with faith. The secret place is where courage is born. Not on Instagram, not in the applause of a crowd, not even in the validation of loved ones. It's born in the stillness, in the surrender, in the solitude of communion with God. That's where the real battles are fought and won. That's where he whispers, "You were made for this." And those words, more than any motivational, quote, ignite a woman's soul. She may look ordinary on the outside, but inside, she's a warrior. And that power didn't come from a seminar or a pep talk. It came from God's voice. It came from her listening when no one else was watching. Look at the great women in Scripture, Esther, Deborah, Mary. Their courage didn't come from status or training. It came from hearing and obeying. Esther didn't just walk into the king's court because she was brave. She walked in because she had heard deep within, "You were born for such a time as this." Deborah didn't rise as a leader in Israel because she wanted to prove something. She rose because she had heard God and refused to stay silent. Mary didn't say yes to carrying the Savior of the world because it was easy. She said yes because she believed the voice that called her was greater than the fear she felt. That's the kind of courage that transforms generations. It's not performative. It's prophetic. It doesn't need an audience. It just needs alignment. And when a woman hears God and chooses to move forward in spite of uncertainty, she creates momentum in the spirit realm that others benefit from. Her obedience isn't just for her. It clears the path for others to walk through. Her faith becomes a covering. Her courage becomes a catalyst. This kind of woman doesn't wait until she feels brave. She moves even while shaking because her foundation is unshakable. Her secret? She listens. She listens until faith drowns out fear, until truth replaces lies, until peace silences panic. And when she walks into rooms, it's not just her entering, it's the weight of her faith, the echo of her prayers, the strength of her obedience. That's why she's different. That's why she's trusted with big assignments. Because courage isn't something she puts on, it's something she's become. And it all started in a quiet place, listening to the one who never fails. Legacy isn't built in a moment. It's built in the quiet, consistent, unseen decisions of a woman who listens to God. While the world chases platforms and quick results, she's tuned into eternity. She understands that her life isn't just about her. It's about those coming after her. She listens not only for direction, but for legacy. Every sacrifice, every act of obedience becomes a seed planted in faith for future generations. She may not see the full harvest in her lifetime, but she walks in confidence knowing that the seeds she plants today will bear fruit in the lives of her children, her grandchildren, and beyond. When a woman hears God and follows, she breaks patterns. She breaks curses. She shifts the atmosphere of her family line. What plagued her mother, what held her grandmother back, stops with her. Because she made a decision to listen to God and not live by default. She lives by design. And when she listens, she becomes more than just a woman making good choices. She becomes a gatekeeper, a builder, a matriarch in the making. She doesn't just raise children, she raises world changers. She doesn't just start businesses, she launches movements. Because every step she takes is ordered, every move she makes is intentional, and every word she speaks is rooted in what she heard in the presence of God. People often think legacy means being remembered, but true legacy is about what remains after you're gone. And what remains from a woman who listened to God is strength, stability, clarity, and blessing. Her children may not understand it at first, but they'll remember how peace filled the home when she prayed, how direction came when she spoke, how healing followed her worship. Long after her voice is gone, her obedience will echo in the lives she touched. The prayers she whispered over children in the dark will rise again when they need guidance. The decisions she made in faith will open doors for others that she never even walked through herself. That's the power of a listening woman. She's building something that lasts. Her influence isn't just emotional, it's spiritual, it's generational. She's not swayed by trends because she's anchored in truth. She doesn't chase relevance because she's rooted in revelation. While others are building resumes, she's building legacy. She's leaving behind more than possessions. She's leaving behind a blueprint for walking with God. And the greatest inheritance she passes on isn't wealth, it's wisdom, it's faith, it's the unshakable testimony of a life lived in tune with heaven. Even when the world doesn't recognize her, heaven does. Even when others overlook her, her legacy is unfolding in quiet power. Because every time she listens to God and responds, she is rewriting history, not just for herself, but for those who will follow in her footsteps. And that is a legacy no one can erase. That is the reward of a woman who listened and never let go of what God said. Let me leave you with this. The power of a woman who listens to God is not found in her title, her income, her social following, or her outward strength. It's found in her surrender. It's found in her, yes. It's found in the way she leans in when the world shouts and chooses instead to be still and listen. That kind of woman is not easily shaken. She doesn't crumble under pressure. She doesn't lose herself in the noise because she knows the voice that called her and she trusts the one who leads her. When a woman listens to God, she becomes a force no storm can stop, no lie can derail, no fear can dominate. She walks in divine discernment, moves in unshakable identity, obeys with relentless faith, leads with supernatural courage, and leaves behind a legacy that cannot be erased. She doesn't just make noise, she makes impact, and that impact echoes through generations. So if you hear anything today, hear this: your greatest power is not in doing more, proving more, or being more. Your greatest power is in listening, truly listening to the voice of God. Everything you need is in that voice. Your next step, your healing, your breakthrough, your assignment, it's all there. And when you walk with that kind of clarity, when you move in that kind of obedience, nothing is impossible. Now is the time. Don't just be a woman who talks about faith, be the woman who walks in it. Don't just hear God respond, because when you do, you won't just change your life. You'll change the atmosphere. You'll change your family. You'll change the world. And that is the power of a woman who listens to God